All right. So we're recording. Thanks for joining the Make Guitar podcast. It is the 12th of December as we're recording this. Christmas is coming. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing pretty good, Kirk. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Um, got a gig tonight, so yeah. I guess I'll
Awesome.
be playing some music.
Yeah, that's great. We somehow we have to get your gig live on the show one day.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. I have to make sure it's a good gig.
Yeah, well we'll record at the bar. Can you do
Yeah.
that? We'll bring the
Um,
laptop. Yeah, they'll go over real big at the bar, you know.
I don't know if that would be a problem. I mean, uh, we used to do that at the Tupelo occasionally, or uh, one of our friends would come in and do it, and then he'd upload it after sending it to the band for clearance to make sure that it's acceptable performance. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So we've got some things on the tube.
nice. Yeah, so what are you working on this week? You got any projects?
Well, I've just been working on some music. Also, it's the holidays, so things are you probably noticed this too, like parts are really slow to come in the mail, and I'm waiting for my soldering iron. It's been at a sorting facility in San Francisco since the 6th of December, so I don't really know what that's about, but I suppose it's probably the same thing that's going on everywhere, which is not enough helpers. Santa doesn't have enough helpers, and yeah, there's just a lot of
It's the
packages flying
season,
around.
it's the season of slow UPS and USPS delivery.
Yeah. Are you waiting for any parts?
Well, I was working on something and I needed a single op amp, and I was digging through this bag of op amps that I have. I just have like a bag and it's got a bunch of bags in it of parts, and I was flipping through there and I couldn't find a single op amp, and then I was like, shoot, I might have to order some parts. And then it takes so long. I was like, that's going to be a total holdup. And then I was digging through my parts bin, and then I realized I had another bag labeled single op amps, and it just had
Oh,
all single op. And I was like, oh, great. Here's all the parts I need, so I dug through there and I found a part.
that's great.
Yeah, so that was good. So I didn't have to order anything. And then I built this, I built another one of these like parentheses kind of octave fuzzes, and I plugged the op amp in there and it didn't work. And I was like, shoot, like, and then I was kind of poking around and I couldn't quite, it was kind of working. Like the distortion section wasn't working and the octave wasn't working, but the boost worked and bypass worked. And then I opened it up and took it apart. And you know what? I got my debugging. I ate dinner and then I came back to it and I got my debugger out and used the multimeter and checked the voltage at the op amp. So I remembered to do that, right? Because sometimes you build things and they don't work and you're like, I don't know what to do. It's like all these parts, you can't tell what's happening.
Mhm.
But if you measure the voltage on everything, it can tell you what the problem is. And so it was like actually like really easy to figure out once I measured the voltages, right?
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, just in the short story is that like if you have an op amp, usually at the input, it should be half the supply voltage. And then the op amp itself has like a power and a ground, and those should be like 0 or like 9 volts and 0 volts, right? And then at the input, right, it should be about half the supply voltage. And then so I measured, and at the input of my op amp, it was like 0 volts. So
Oh,
obviously it wasn't going to pass any kind of signal.
right.
So
So how did you fix that? What was the physical issue with the thing?
yeah, either there was what I did is like there's always like uh 2 resistors and like a capacitor, and they make a voltage divider.
Hmm.
And so you take 9 volts in, and then if you have these 2 equal resistors at the junction, that's half the voltage, right? So it should be about 4.5. So I went and I found those two resistors. It was like R18 and R19. And then I measured them and I was getting like 9 volts on one side and 0 volts on the other side. So obviously those guys were not doing their job.
Right. Yeah. So you just resoldered those parts.
Yeah. Either I forgot to solder them or I did a bad job soldering. And so I just soldered them from the top of the board because I didn't want to pull the whole thing out. But then I soldered them and then boom, everything fired up and it was all working. So I was happy.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Yeah, right? So I did that, and then I worked on a couple of these guys right here. I did a little work. I have 2 of these. This is the Aeon Fx Doppelganger. It's a clone of the Love Tone Doppelganger, or it's actually the Quadratron, the Aeon Quadratron and the Love Tone Doppelganger. But anyway, so I got this thing. I soldered all the switches on there and the pots on there and the LEDs, right? And I got all the parts here, and now I just got to put it in the box. So I got this box all drilled. I installed the bezels for the LED. I just need to, you know what I need to do is I need to drill for the jacks on the back and the power supply. Like that, those holes are missing. And the problem is I did one of these and I used the drill guide that they give you, but I don't know if I don't want to say it's wrong, but it seemed wrong to me because when I drilled from the guide, the pots were too far outboard. And so they ran into the sides of the box, right? Like the pots were placed like too far to the outside, so they would run into these posts. So I had to like kind of use a file and kind of move the holes a little bit inboard.
Right.
Make them work. So
yeah.
So anyway, so I didn't drill the holes for those automatically this time using the guide. Instead, I'm going to go back and measure them carefully and see if I can get a better job of it this time, you know?
Yeah. Are you going to measure them off the other pedal?
You know, that's a good point. That I did exactly that. I lined up the 2 pedals side by side and kind of like marked the holes based on where I put them on the first one.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I have the first one right here. You know what I got to do with this though is I've tested everything except the 2 foot pedals, like the expression pedals. I think it's like these 2 guys right here. Except I don't really have an expression pedal. So I was thinking about a couple things because I just want to test that to see if they work, you know. But I was thinking I have an old volume pedal, so maybe I could turn the volume pedal into an expression pedal.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so I just got to do that, you know, dig it out and I don't know, see if I can get it to work.
What do typical expression pedals look like? I've never bought one.
It just looks like a volume pedal or a wah pedal.
Okay. They're usually like a full size, like Dunlop wah pedal or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Roland makes them or Boss does, you know. I don't know anybody else. Maybe I'm sure there's somebody that makes an expression pedal. I just, you don't see it a lot, you know, because usually like if you buy like a wah or something, it is the pedal and you don't need the expression pedal.
Right.
So there's a lot of effects that have an input for an expression pedal. It's surprising the number of effects that will do that.
I don't think I have any pedals that use an expression pedal that have an outboard jack, but
yeah, I would avoid it myself. Like it just seems like extra parts and extra wiring, and like I think too the expression pedals sometimes they're not standard. So I'm not super clear on this, but I think some of them use like different values of resistance. So some are like 100K, some are like 50K, some want a 25K pot. And then some of them too, I think have a stereo jack and some of them use like a standard jack.
Okay.
Right. And I'm not quite sure about the wiring. So that's why I don't know. That's why I don't know. I got to go look at the diagram and see how this is wired up and see if I can figure out how to get the expression pedal to work with it, you know, and then I'll have to make the expression pedal.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember who makes it. There's a pedal that that Dustin was looking at that I think he actually owns it, but it has the expression pedal is like this little disc and it's like really flat. I don't
you turn it like this, like
I don't think so. I think you step on it. or you touch it
weird.
or whatever. Um,
Huh. So you press it down like it's pressure sensitive.
yeah.
Huh. Because like Maestro used to make some pedals. They came in these kind of wedge shaped containers that were aluminum.
Hmm.
And one or two of them had a disc on top of it, but the way that it worked is you rotated it with your foot. It was kind of, maybe about this big, and you could put your foot on it, and as you turned your foot, you could turn the thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they had these other things too. Imagine like this kind of a wedge shaped pedal, something like, like kind of this shape, right?
Hmm.
And it had like a circular thing on the sides. Imagine two of those, like one on each side, like this, like cylinders.
Yeah.
But they stuck up a little bit above the top edge of the pedal, so you could actually run your foot along them to change them, or edit them, or kind of adjust the value.
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about this before, but like our feet generally are not the most dexterous parts of our body,
Speak
when
for
you're playing
yourself.
guitar. That's right. Well, maybe if you have the right shoes, then that'll help you out.
Yeah. That's I think all rock guitar players are going to switch over to those Vibram, 5 fingers, the
Yeah.
those shoes, right? Just so they can manipulate their guitar pedals while they play.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that because I mean, I think that those are very controversial shoes. Like some people don't, some people find them a little bit uh, unattractive.
I don't know. Jimmy Page was lamenting that they weren't around in the 60s and 70s when, he was a big rock star.
Right.
I
For
mean, I don't have any
using
proof
his,
that he
for
said that,
manipulating
but
his
I
pedals.
could see it in his eye,
Yeah, I believe that.
you know?
I can't find. There was a pedal that had this little disc, and I'm pretty sure you just touch it, that it's just like a touch on and off kind of thing, and you wouldn't need special shoes. But what Dustin did say, it was probably better to just like have it on a table rather than having it on the floor because it's this weird little kind of fragile looking disc.
What does the pedal do? Is it like a fuzz pedal or a
I cannot remember. I think it might be some kind of like a.
phase shifter?
I think it's probably some kind of like fuzz with a filter or something like that. It has some
Huh.
kind of filter thing on it, but
I like me
cannot
some fuzz
remember.
with a filter.
Yeah,
I think it sounds pretty good.
yeah. I don't know. I'll have to look it up for another show. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
maybe we'll buy one.
Yeah, we'll go look. We'll get Jeff. No, no way. We're cheaper than that. We'll borrow Dustin's.
Yeah, good
Right?
idea.
Come on. That's how we get by. We don't spend more money than we need to. That's my goal. So we're coming up to the end of the year. My New Year's resolution is going to be not to buy any guitar pedals or gear.
Hmm. That's a good
All
goal.
this
I mean, you know how to
stuff,
make
just
pedals,
get rid
so
of gear.
yeah. Why buy guitar pedals?
I know. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I still enjoy shopping for guitars on Reverb, but I don't
Oh
ever need to
yeah.
buy any because I have plenty of guitars, and I just need to make the ones that I have better, or the ones that I have that aren't functional. I just need to put them together. Again, waiting for parts. I don't know if my guitar fetish order has reached California yet, but um, kind of chomping at the bit for that one.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you order? Did you order anything interesting?
Oh yeah, I bought those red active
Oh,
pickups for the Stage Master project.
oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't have any guitars with active pickups. I've never
Um,
used them.
I have a bass with active pickups. Maybe it's because it's a fretless bass. It's like a home conversion, and maybe because it has a mudbucker on it. But I don't know. I'm not in love with it.
You
But I
don't like
used it
it?
on last week's song.
Oh, cool. Yeah, how did last week's song go?
Last week's song. Last week's song was it was fun. I didn't get it very polished, but it got it done. This week's song, I didn't put any bass on it. I thought about it afterwards, but it's mostly the Micro Freak. So kind of, I don't know, kind of, I think stands on its own.
Nice.
The Micro Freak and then the baritone guitar was kind of like the chord progression part of it.
Yeah, last week I had a hard time coming up with an idea. This week I had another idea, but it ended up being kind of short. Like I think my song was like 2 minutes 20.
Okay, mine was last week, but this time it was like 3 minutes 45.
Oh, that's good. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
couldn't
rock
cut it
songs
down.
like 3 minutes, you know?
Right. I mean, it helps actually to, kind of condense your ideas down. Like, um, I think in the past I've made really long demos, and you just play the same part over and over again because you're not like thinking about, you know, um, verse, chorus, and all this, that kind of stuff. I mean, when you're younger, you're, maybe more inexperienced, you're not really, um, you haven't got it down yet. The whole compact, concise rock song.
Yeah, I think the limits are good, you know? If you're like, okay, I gotta do everything in this 2 minutes 50 or whatever, 3 minute spot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. This week I recorded a lot. I recorded, many different performances of the solo. And then at the end, I was like, that doesn't even need most of this solo. So I just chucked it. But I spent a lot of time doing that. And, it's never bad to do that, but it is a waste of time in a way.
Yeah, I think I did a similar thing. I did one track where I just kind of noodled on the guitar all the way through,
Hmm.
but then I used the automation track and I just turned the volume down
That's what I
on
did.
like most of the measures except for like the last two measures and then a measure in the like 8 bars in the middle. I turned it up a little bit, so
Oh,
you
okay.
can hear it. And
Yeah,
then
I couldn't tell.
I actually did like a second take. Actually, I did like 13 takes. Like I looped the last section. So the last 2 bars, like I wanted to play that over and over again, like just to practice it. And so I recorded it like I looped it with the region,
Hmm.
and then I played like I just played over it like 13 times. And then I picked out one of those takes and then I chopped it up and I mixed it with the first take. Because the first take I was kind of liking, but there was like a couple like kind of clams on it that weren't very good. So I
Hmm.
just kind of edited those out and spliced in like a little bit of that of one of the other takes.
That's great. I mean, it's amazing that we have that technology to do that.
I know people used to just have to get it right the first time.
Yeah, and the other thing is like, well, I was kind of thinking like the the take editor or whatever, like having multiple takes, it doesn't make recording a guitar solo easy. It just helps you to catalog your ideas. So um, you have a lot of ideas recorded, and then as you go through them, which is a lot of work, you can just pick the best parts from that and combine them with the best parts of other takes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's kind of some weird things though, is like you can't like it seems like it won't keep the takes like or track them if you don't loop them at exactly the same point.
Hmm.
So if you record a section and it's like a little bit long or a little bit short, and then you want to record like something that's a little bit longer, a little bit shorter than that one over the last take, like it kind of doesn't remember the previous take or it doesn't show you on that list.
Oh, weird.
But if you loop them and they're exactly the same length, then it'll remember all the takes.
Okay, so the takeaway there is use the looper, use that yellow bar.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could be missing something though, but that seemed to be my experience. So I like if I have some section where I'm gonna like just loop a shorter section of the longer song, like I'll make a new track and then just do it on that track.
Right. Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what I did too is I was trying to add an organ track, so I broke out the B9 Like,
Aha,
let's try to
okay.
get this to sound like the organ. It does a pretty convincing organ sound, but it wasn't like, I don't know if I was just not playing it right or something, but it wasn't sounding good on my song, you know? So I recorded the organ maybe like 6 times. I did 6 different takes, and then I was trying just different chord voicings, you know? And then and some of the different organ sounds too, because this has like 9 different sounds on it, you know? So I tried some different sounds, and then I just turned it down, you know, and then maybe use the automation track to bring it in a little bit more on, you know, a particular section, you know?
Oh, so you kept it in? Because I don't
Yeah, I did,
recall
but I
hearing
just
it.
turned it down because it wasn't sounding very good,
Okay.
you know? I feel like, you know, maybe my problem was that I was playing it in the same register that I played the guitar in, because I was using like the similar position on the fretboard, you know?
Right.
So I probably
Yeah.
should have worked out some different chord voicings and moved it up towards the nut or further down the fretboard, you know?
Right. Yeah, I guess that would be, like a good reason to use a baritone or maybe a guitar that's in Nashville tuning or something like that. Just something, that's different, or like what do you call those? A tenor guitar, or whatever you've got that's just different.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes if I overdub the guitars, I just switch the pickup. So I'll
Hmm.
do like the bridge and on one take, and then I'll do the neck pickup on the other take, and then I'll do the middle pickup on a third take, and then I'll just mix them together. You know, I'll pick one that sounds good, and then I'll mix a little bit of each of the other ones, you know?
Yeah, that's a good technique.
Yeah, I usually just stick with one guitar though, but I guess suppose you could switch guitars too, because you know, you even maybe get a wider range of tones with different pickups, but different types of pickups, but the just switching the bridge neck position, right, is actually you get a pretty good range of sound, but it's similar, so I guess it mixes well.
Yeah.
I don't know. This I'm just learning, right? So we're just practicing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's good advice, for anybody who's trying to do the same thing. Just give yourself some options when you're mixing down. Um, yeah, actually, I got out another guitar and I was going to put another guitar track as kind of like a wash, kind of like a My Bloody Valentine kind of tremolo strumming wash.
Yeah.
Um, but it sounded terrible. It just muddied everything up. I probably could have gotten away with the one guitar track, that the baritone fuzz track, but I did another solo track and I decided to keep a little bit of it in my final mix. Um, but I also put a second track of Micro Freak where I was actually playing live
Oh,
over the,
nice.
the recording.
Yeah, the Micro Freak gets good reviews. I was looking up something about it the other day. I ran into it, and it seems to get pretty good reviews.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. I saw a video some guy made where he said the only reason not to get a Micro Freak is if you already have one, but even then, maybe it's not a good enough reason because they,
Two, yeah.
yeah,
Does it have a sequencer? I think I asked you before.
yeah, as a sequencer,
That's great because you could have a sequencer going for as a backing track on one of them and then play on the other, or you could have two sequences going, you know?
right?
They have a clock sync, don't they?
Yep.
So you can sync them up. That's great, right?
Yeah, and I used it to sync with my Volca, and so I used the Volca beats for my drum track on this week's song.
Oh, nice. So you could do some
Um,
like arpeggios on one Micro Freak, set up some drums on the Volca beats, and then play something, like a melody or something on the, or some pads on the other Micro Freak, right?
yeah, yeah. Or you could have two sequences going, or you know, I have a progression going on one, and then it's like a sequence of notes or bass line or something like that. There's all kinds of endless possibilities.
Endless.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, so what else? I was trying to think of what else was I working on. I don't think I have anything else to work on, that was about it. I got my song going. It was only 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So it was a little short, but I had an idea. I went with it, you know. I realized that, you know what I did is I took this chord progression from the 8-bar blues.
Hmm.
So there's like a bunch of different blues, like 12-bar progressions, and everybody's familiar with those, but there's a lot of songs are written in 8 bars, right? And it's actually, I feel it's kind of like the foundation for a lot of rock music, you know. But
Yeah, you mentioned a few songs, or yeah, you mentioned a few songs the other day that were 8-bar blues, and I thought that was interesting because I've never done the math on it to figure out like what the 8 bars are, what goes into those 8 bars.
yeah, usually 8-bar blues are like they're broken down into 2 4-bar sections,
Hmm.
and you can actually kind of mix and match them, right? So there's the first 4 bars and the second 4 bars, you know? Like, so the progression that I was using is like, it's like 1 5 4 4 is the first 4 bars, and then the second 4 is like 1 5 1 5,
Okay.
right? But you can also swap them up. There's a few different progressions, right? Um, and sometimes what they'll do is a common pattern is to do like one of the 8-bar blues for a while, and then on the bridge or at some change they'll switch it up and do a different 4 bars or 8 bars, and then switch back to the first pattern, right? But anyway, I realized
Hmm.
what I had done is I had taken the first half of the 8-bar blues, like the first 4-bar section, and then I just played that all the way through. Like, most of my song was pretty simple, but then I was like, man, did I just invent the 4-bar blues?
Maybe you did. I've never heard anybody talk about the 4-bar
Yeah, well,
blues.
I'm kind of remedial, so you know, like I gotta pare everything down to the simplest, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least you're thinking about it. I got to a certain point where I realized I changed the progression of my song in a couple places, but it wasn't really, it wasn't really mapped out. I was just like, I think I'm gonna, you know, play a different progression here, and then um, later on, I was like, I think I'll play a different progression again here with no rhyme or reason, just because. And it made it really difficult to play over.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you don't have the song all mapped out, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Actually, not this week, but the week before, you know, what was funny is I planned my song by mapping it out, but I used some experimental music notation. Like, I just kind of
Oh, good.
took a page in my notebook and kind of mapped out my song, you know, with just like drawings, you know.
I don't
There's a there's
I don't
a
know if we talked about this on the show last week, but I think you were going to talk about lines.co.
Oh yeah, that's the place. I was just gonna say that. Yeah. So like the Lines forum, they talk about like synthesizer stuff, and you know, it's like kind of a forum for the monome, which is kind of like a weird little grid like music tool. It's just got a bunch of buttons in a grid, and then you
Hmm.
can kind of program it to do different things, and you can connect it with synthesizers and other weird music making tools, right? To get it to do musical things, right? But their forums just open. People talk about whatever, but they have a thread called experimental music notation, and it's the most fun. You just go through it, and just it's page after page of like just weird drawings that represent music in different
Hmm.
ways, and people will come up with the kookiest ways to express their musical ideas. So it's just fun to look at every one of those and imagine like what it sounds like.
Yeah, I looked at a little bit of it. It was definitely entertaining. I'll post it in the description so y'all can look at it, um, and see if you understand it. Or
It's super inspiring.
yeah,
Right, I recommend anybody to check that out. Like, I just tried it myself. I just drew out like kind of like some experimental notation to describe the song I was trying to make, you know.
maybe I'll try that next song. I'll try mapping it out on paper,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, I just drew some pictures to kind of say like what was supposed to happen here, and then I wrote a couple numbers down because I had like this little melodic sequence that I was going to play. So I just wrote the numbers down for it, you know, in one part, you know, like, and then I wrote some other scribbly lines for something else, you know. I don't know how accurate I was to my notation, but it's similar to what I had in mind in my head. So like,
Oh, that's good. But only you would know how accurate it is. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. For mine, I started out by creating a sequence on the Microfreak, and then I jammed over it with the baritone. And this was like last Monday. And then I listened to it and I was like, well, I can't possibly recreate what I did on the Microfreak, but I'll do a similar kind of thing for the final recording. And it worked out okay. I don't know. I mean, it's the song of the week, so I'm not going to be overly critical of it, but I will post it in the description. So if anybody wants to listen and throw their feedback.
Yeah. We got a new song next week anyway, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
We'll do a better song next week. I liked yours. Yours was pretty cool. It's pretty tough.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Which one, last week's or this week's?
Well, I liked them both, but this week. Yeah,
Good
last
answer.
week's was it was definitely more, it felt more experimental. It was mostly electronic, right?
Yeah.
Like mostly the synth, and then I think you had a little guitar thing right in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a little bit of guitar, some chords at the end, but it's all synthesizer. I did the synthesizer track and then went back and played the guitar over the top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I did the synthesizer kind of live, you know, I just kind of twiddled the knobs live, you know, I kind of
Mhm.
a little plan, and then I did like maybe 4 takes, right? And then I just picked out the best one or the one that I liked the best, you know. Yeah, it was kind of fun. I got to do more with the synthesizer, so that was pretty good, you know.
Yeah, well, this week's song was my first experiment in recording the synthesizer, and well, you had a pretty good luck lining up your sequences in GarageBand. Um, sounds like last week, right? Or was it this week?
Yeah, last week.
Last week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I did is I used this module called Temps Util, right? So Temps Util, it's like a clock module. So it has 6 clock outputs. I'm holding 4 fingers, but it has 6. It has 6 clocks, right? And you can program all the clocks differently. It's pretty cool. Like you can program the clocks as like a multiple. You can program the clocks as like a Euclidean. You could program the clocks in random or in burst or in a pattern. Like, you know, it'll base the pattern on like, you know, number, like a number sequence or something, right? You know, and so like, you know, like if you have 6 channels, you could set the tempo of Temps Util, like I set it to 120 BPM. And then you could pick any channel and you could say, well, you know, I want this channel to be on every beat. So you set it to ×1, and you could take another channel and set it to ×16. So it only goes off every 4 measures or 4 bars or whatever, right?
Okay.
You know, and then you could set like another channel to like a Euclidean pattern. So the Euclidean pattern is like if you have like 16 beats, right? If you divide that number by, let's say, 4, Euclidean would put a beat on every 4 because it divides evenly. But if you did it on 3s, then it would do like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and then the next beat would come on 1. Right? So imagine just dividing the measure up as evenly as possible, but then if there's some left over, that's okay too.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So nothing gets off the beat, right? You know?
Right.
So anyway, it's pretty cool. So I just set it to 120 BPM, and then I just recorded into GarageBand, and I set GarageBand to 120 BPM, you know? And so if I put like the drum track in GarageBand on top, it was pretty close. Like it was like at the end of the song, like after 3 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever, I think on the timeline, it's hard to tell, but like it looked like the waveform, like the peaks were like a little bit off. So there was like a small discrepancy, but it kind of was okay. I don't think I don't think anybody noticed that, right?
Yeah, I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I'll try that next time. I actually, like the Micro Freak does have, does show the tempo in the little display. Um, so I could have tried that, but this time I just recorded everything to the beat of the Volca.
Yeah, if you could sync the Volca to the Micro Freak, then you could set the BPM on the Volca.
That's well, you set the BPM on the Micro Freak, but it controls the speed. It controls the rate of the, or the BPM of the Volca beats.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, right? So I guess you're already doing that. It makes sense. It's kind of obvious, right?
Well, it's like, unless you want chaos, it's kind of required.
Yeah. Actually, I got a question for you. So if you use the sequencer on the Micro Freak, did you did you program it in like arpeggios, or did you pick a scale? Like how did you pick the notes for that?
I actually played a chord, and I shouldn't say I used the sequencer. I used the arpeggiator, and I just used a random setting of a chord, and then I just kind of clicked the hold and then played with the knobs throughout the performance. So it could, by the end of it, it's not exactly the way it started out. It's a little bit of a journey. But yeah, I didn't actually program a sequence this time.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because that's something I wanted to explore, is like, trying to get a chord progression pattern programmed into the sequencer. I have this a module. It's called Ornament and Crime, and it has like, it's kind of like a bunch of small apps like built into it. So it has a tiny little screen, but and two encoders, and you can press the encoder and then it'll list a bunch of apps and you can pick one of them, right, to run. And there's probably like 12 or 20 apps on there. There's a whole bunch. And one of them is a sequencer. So it has two channels. So it's a 2-channel sequencer, and there's 4 outputs. So, you got the CV output on each of the channels, and then there's a gate for each channel. But the second output, it can be a gate, but you can also tell it to make it an envelope, or you can have it be a second CV source, But anyway, it has like every pattern can be 16 steps long, or it can be any up to 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can make up to 4 patterns for each of the 2 channels, right? You can't sequence the patterns though, but you can tell it to play pattern 1 and then pattern 2, or just play pattern 1, or play pattern 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You can also like use an input, like a CV input, to tell it which pattern to play, right? But I was thinking, like, what if I have 4 16-step patterns? Like I could do 1 chord on the first set, another chord on, you can make like a 4-chord song,
You're right.
Right. So I don't know. That's something I was trying to program in there, and I think I kind of got it, but it was not super exciting. I guess I just don't. I'm not Bach. I can't think of those good arpeggios. So I got to tinker with it a little bit more. But that was something I was thinking about trying out, and then thinking like, okay, if I got the sequencer going, then I could play over the sequencer.
Yeah. No, I definitely need to learn more about the Micro Freak. I know it has like 2 sequences, or it can store 2 sequences, I think, per patch. I don't know. I definitely need to learn more about it. But yeah, I think it's also got a max 16 steps. And interestingly enough, I think if you don't end up with 16, it's kind of works out. It just kind of comes out in the wash. I don't know how, but yeah, I've heard other people say that on YouTube, that like it's not particularly particular when it comes to your your notes lining up.
Oh, weird. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. That, yeah, you have to experiment with that. Maybe
Yeah.
it could be good though. Could be experimental,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Right. And I'm sure somebody has already, like documented how the sequencer, how it deals with the, the extra notes that you failed to program or whatever. But yeah, it would be experimental for me. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, the ornament in Crime is pretty good. It's like a Eurorack module, so you just plug it into your Eurorack system. So it's pretty good. It's got a built-in quantizer too. So like when you program a sequence, you can pick the notes or quantize them to a particular scale.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little frustrating to use because of the way that you input the notes. Like it has like a little tiny screen. It's like this big, and then it has little tiny ticks for each of the beats or each of the notes in the sequence, right? And then you turn the encoder and you can select one of the notes. There's a little box around it, right? And then you turn the other encoder and there's a little bar that goes up and down, right? But the thing is, in order for you to tell what note it is, at the top of the screen, it says like at C0 or C1, or maybe it's C3, I forget, whatever the middle C is, it'll say +0.00. And then if you go up a half step, you turn the knob, it'll say 0.01. Right? So you're like, okay.
Pretty cryptic.
Yeah, I started 0 is middle C, and then if I go up one semitone, it's going to be 0.01. If you go down, it'll be like negative 0.01. So you're up, and if you go up to 12, right, then it goes over and shows you +1, right? So it'll be like +1.00, right? It's kind of frustrating. So you're like, okay, I'm going to make like a C chord. So I set the quantizer to the Ionian scale. We'll assume 0 volts is middle C, but that means like C sharp, E. So I got to go up like 3 semitones, right, to get to E, So it's like 0 and then 3 and then 7, I think, is the 5th, like.
Do you have to wear a lab coat when you're programming the device?
Yeah, and you have to use a slide rule,
Well, that's what those things are for.
Yeah. You need a clipboard, and some pens in your shirt pocket,
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds really extreme nerdy.
It's actually not that bad, but it's not that great either. I'm gonna say it's not that great, but it's not so bad. You just have to turn the knob, and it's a little weird too, because like if you have the scale set to semitones, then if you turn it up like to 0.01, it'll be like 1 semitone, so it'll be like C sharp, But if you turn it up, if you set the quantizer to the Ionian scale, then it'll round down and play middle C, even though you have it set to 1 semitone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to turn it up 2 semitones and you get to D, right?
So
I
you
guess
really have to know your
be
scales.
Like 4 on the scale, I guess. No, it'd be 3, right? It'd be like C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Yeah, maybe it's 4, I guess, for the E, right? I don't know. Yeah, so it's a little weird to use. So you're like turning it up a semitone, nothing happens, right? You're not hearing anything because it's quantizing to a particular note, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's got its own quirks. You gotta kind of get used to it, But it's kind of cool because like usually like if you have a sequencer, you gotta program the sequencer, and then the sequencer will have a gate, or maybe not. It depends on your sequencer, but usually you'll have a gate going out. But then the gate, like if you want to have an envelope, you have to plug that into an envelope and then program your envelope. So you need like the sequencer, you need the envelope, 2 different modules, and like an oscillator to get some sound. You'd have to have like 3 modules. Maybe you want a filter too, so you have like 4, right? But with this, like you can program the second channel to be an envelope. So you're like, oh, I don't even need the gate. You know, you might, maybe you're going to use the gate for something else, but like oftentimes you want the envelope and the gate is just going to trigger the envelope, right? So it's kind of cool that the envelope is just built in.
Right. Yeah, no, that is cool. I mean, because you already have a lot of stuff to collect when you get into Eurorack. So
Yeah, well,
anything that doubles up.
yeah, it's just like synthesizer stuff in general, right? So if you get
Mhm.
like the modular, I should say modular synthesis, right? So
Right.
just in general, like you to get a sound out of it, you need to do a lot of work. It's like, you know, at least in the old school way, like you'd need like an oscillator, you'd have to plug it through a VCA, and then you'd have to go trigger your VCA with some kind of gate or trigger, and then maybe you have a sequencer to generate some notes, right? So you need like 4 modules just to get the sound, just to go whip, right?
Yeah. I never got into modular. Like the first time I touched a sequencer or a synthesizer, it was the Sequential Circuits Pro 1, which
Mhm.
doesn't have a sequencer, but it has an arpeggiator, and you know, it has that whole um, ASDR, you know,
Yeah,
model for
ADSR.
ADSR. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's really, really cool. But yeah, it was a simpler time.
Ah, those were the days,
Yeah.
you know. Hey, what are you listening to right now? Did you hear anything good this week?
Oh, I did. I heard this great band on KEXP's YouTube channel, and they're also on Bandcamp. But they are called. Uh, I know what they're called. I'm looking it up because I always forget how to say it. It's Margaritas Podritas. They are from. They're a Mexican band. They're kind of like a shoegaze grunge band, and yeah, they kind of started out wanting to emulate Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain, and then kind of morphed into this shoegaze thing over time. So they've got 2 albums out. They're, like I said, they're a young band, but they've been busy. So I highly recommend checking them out. I highly recommend the KEXP performance and interview, and also check them out on Bandcamp.
Awesome. I'm gonna go check them out. Yeah, I love KEXP. They just
Yeah,
have really great shows. They did it through the pandemic too. You know, they were doing stuff, I think, which was
yeah, they
cool.
were. I mean, a lot of the performances were done, they were done in people's home studios and then sent to KEXP.
Yeah.
But typically, what they do is they have like a pretty good performance space and really great sound. I think I mentioned that Deep Sea Diver and Idols both were in the KEXP studio recently, like post lockdown. So that's cool. And yeah, the I think Deep Sea Diver, um, that performance was hosted by uh, uh, Kevin Cole, who is a former Minneapolitan. He used to be the head DJ at First Avenue, and he's a super cool guy. He's got great taste in music, um, and now he works at KEXP in Seattle.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to go check that out later. I saw a live thing on YouTube today. It was like Ty Segall and like some band. I forget what the band was called, but it looked kind of cool. I didn't watch the whole thing because it was like half an hour long.
Oh wow.
It was live. They were in some kind of like amphitheater, like outdoors, you know.
Interesting. Okay.
It looked kind of good, but then I just watched like the first like 5-10 minutes, and then I was like, okay, I gotta go do something, and so I had to put it down.
All right. I'll look for it. Or it'll probably just show up in my feed now that we've talked about it, because that's how the internet works.
Yeah, I know they're listening. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, okay, so cool. So we got to do another song this week. So that's actually pretty good. We did like 3 songs in 3 weeks.
Well, I didn't finish my song the first week. You did. Um, I think, yeah, I didn't finish my song. I think I just started it. But yeah, next week.
What's finished? Like
Well, I didn't upload it to SoundCloud.
oh, okay. then that doesn't, yeah, you gotta, you need some way to mark it as done. You gotta
Yeah.
stamp it with a rubber stamp, and
Yeah.
file it away, to say that it's done. Though I guess suppose you could go back to them. Maybe that would be a thing later. Maybe we'll do that in the future, like go back to the songs and do something with them. I don't know. I was
That would be
also
cool.
running out of space on my computer, so I had to just do some house cleaning on the computer. I got this spare hard drive, so I just downloaded a bunch of crap to the hard drive and deleted it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I do a lot of that. I have, I think most of my, um, what do you call it? The video editing program that comes with the Mac.
iMovie.
iMovie. Yeah. I have my iMovie projects all offloaded onto another drive.
Yeah,
And it's good because I don't work on it every day.
Yeah, iMovie is a little weird too. It's really hard to delete stuff. Like you
Yeah.
delete it, but it still remembers all the assets. Like
Hmm.
and it doesn't store a file. It's not like you save an iMovie project.
Yeah.
Right. So you just have iMovie and there's no files. You just open up iMovie and it shows you projects inside iMovie.
Yeah. I know it's pretty crazy. Once your hard drive gets full, then you just have to buy a new computer.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, what you do is you right click on iMovie and then say show package contents, and there's a hidden folder, and in that
Mhm.
folder there's a folder with all of your projects, right? I don't know why they do it that way, because I feel like people are savvy enough these days, the average people can
I
use.
don't either. I mean, like GarageBand doesn't work like that. It's very easy to transport a GarageBand project to another computer or another drive.
Yeah, you could share with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had iMovie set up with where it was using the iMovie, like the library folder or whatever they call it, like on my external hard drive, and that worked pretty good because then it would save everything there. But if you ever open it up without connecting the external hard drive, then it starts saving stuff on your hard drive locally, and then
Mhm.
you end up with stuff in both places, and that's a headache. So it's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
frustrating. I wish you could just save the files somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Apple, if you're listening.
Yeah, Apple, come on,
Yeah.
do something about that. We got it. You're frustrating me.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody got a hard drive space like you want them to have. So
Yeah, yeah. You know what I did though is I bought. Speaking of that, the last phone I bought, I bought like maximum storage because I was just tired of like managing songs and pictures.
mhm. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, it's working pretty good. I haven't run out of space yet. Okay, should we call it a day?
I guess so.
Call it an
I have to
episode.
go play a show. Gotta go out in the rain. So yeah, um, we'll come back at you next week with another exciting episode and
Yeah,
another song.
I got some circuit boards and they're in the mail. I made some new boards. So I'll send you and Steve a board.
Oh, great. Well, I just received some boards from you this week. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm behind.
I got some new ones. I made another copy of that UBE screamer. It's like a tube screamer, but it uses the hex inverters, so the CMOS
Right.
chip instead of the op amps,
Right.
or in place of the op amps and the transistors. And it sounds pretty good. And then I made a second version of that uses it has like an extra like knob that is kind of a blend knob, so it takes the straight signal and blends it with the distorted signal.
Hmm. That's cool.
So the first one doesn't have that, but the second one has it, right?
Right.
And then what I did too is I set up some more boards too. I'm going to try and get these manufactured. It's like the UBE Screamer and the 22/7. They both use the hex inverter and the CMOS chip, except there's two versions of that chip. There's the 4049 and the 4069. And they're basically the same chip. They have 6 hex inverters on them. So you could use either chip for the circuit, except one chip is 16 pins and the other one's 14 pins. So the pins are in a little different order. So I just made a whole new board that supports the 4069. They might sound different. You never know. So I'm going to try. That's going to be my next project. I got those all set up in Eagle. I just got to send them away to have them manufactured.
Well, that's cool. It'll be interesting to see if they do sound different.
It is kind of curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see, that's my next project, and then I was working on a project with Steve too, and I think that's almost done, but he said he was going to breadboard it. So I thought before I have the board manufactured, I would get feedback from him on, because if he builds it and breadboards it and tests it and says like, oh, this is great, or if he has any suggestions for improvements,
Yeah, now would be the
before I
time.
send it away,
Right.
So anyway, so that was my week there.
No, that's good.
That's my next week too. I got projects coming up next week, so that'll be that.
Yeah, I should probably start looking ahead at like what parts I'm going to need to order, because I definitely don't have any hex inverters in my workbench. So yeah, I'm
You
gonna have
gotta
to
have
order.
hex inverters, Kirk.
Yeah, I know.
How do you get by without your hex inverters, man?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm just barely doing it.
Yeah, we should ask that to the audience. How do you guys get by without hex inverters? Or do you?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't,
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, should we call it a day?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us all. And yeah, we'll see you next time.